The Double Switch by Carole Neuok, Chapter 26. I was feeling a bit overwhelmed when I followed Kelsey out onto the stage. It was the first time for me to perform along with the worship team for the Saturday evening service. It was also the first time that I had been inside the mega church, and I hadn't expected to see almost 2,000 people staring back at me from the sanctuary. I should have expected it, since the parking lot was the size of the one at a large shopping mall. Kyle gave me a smile of reassurance that calmed my nerves, and I forgot all about everything except for the music. Grant tapped out the first 4 beats, and we all began performing the first song. My hand slid up and down the familiar neck of my guitar and found the strings as naturally as taking my next breath. I remembered every word, and my voice found the perfect tones to harmonize with my sisters, Katie and Kelsey. Our mother sat in the first row, smiling with glistening eyes that were threatening to spill with tears of joy. As I looked around the massive sanctuary, I managed to see my new friends from Life Fest. Mary and Gertie were sitting just a few rows behind Grace. Gertie gave a little wave as she smiled up at me. After we finished the first song, Kyle said, "I know that you think you are seeing double tonight. For those of you who haven't already heard about our story on the news, I will give it to you in a nutshell. Lindsay here is Kelsey's identical twin sister. Lindsay and I were switched at birth, and thanks to a few of you who spoke to her at Life Fest, we have been reunited. We don't know how the switch happened, and we probably never will. We just feel so blessed to have Lindsay with us again, and I am happy to get to know my fraternal twin, Lenny, and my 4 older brothers, along with their families. Our family has just doubled in size. This is so amazing. Praise God." Next, we performed You Are Loved. Kelsey and I each took turns singing the lead. Next, Kelsey said, "I really want to thank those of you who spoke to Lindsay while she was at Life Fest earlier this summer. Without you, we would probably not be together today, and I am just too happy to have Lindsay back in my life. I just feel like a missing piece was found again. It has been wonderful getting to know her. We found that even though we were raised apart, we are very much alike. Lindsay's little white dog is also named Daisy, just like our family dog. We both have the same middle name, Marie. And Danny Goki is not only our favorite artist, but he is also Kyle's. And all 3 of us agree that our next song is our favorite." We then played Tell Your Heart to Beat Again. I stepped back and watched Kyle from the corner of my eye as he sang. He did an amazing job. It wasn't the first time that I heard him perform the song, but I never tired of it. I thought about what a wonderful man he was and the fact that we shared a dream. We had in fact shared that dream for years before we ever met. He had every quality that I prayed for in a man. But what? I asked myself. He's not your brother. He's nothing like your brothers or your father. He's Kyle. But I didn't want to be a slave to a man like my mother was. It was then that I realized that was it. That was what was holding me back from making a commitment. I didn't want to be manipulated like my mother had been. I had broken up with each of the men that I almost married because of my fear of becoming a doormat like her. Because that was what submitting to a man looked like to me. As Kyle sang, I was praying that I could find a way to be with a man without becoming his slave like Ruby had. After we finished, I set my guitar in the stand and walked out to sit with Grace along with Katie, Kelsey, and Kyle. Somehow, I ended up right between Kelsey and Kyle. With me added to the mix, the pew was as full as it could be, and we had to sit very close. It felt so right to be there with them. I was beginning to feel less and less like an outsider. Kyle was right. We both belonged to both families. We were the lucky ones. I'm always amazed that no matter where I attend church, the sermon is always about the one thing that I was struggling with at the time. Today's sermon was no exception. As it turned out, today's sermon would be about submitting to a man. And it was a female minister who was speaking today. Who better to discuss submission than a woman? From her teaching, I learned that a woman can't submit to a man who is not a Christian, who is immature, or who is abusive. It all made so much sense that I wondered why I had never realized that before. When she finished, we filed onto the stage and played out the congregation with 3 more songs. It felt so right to be with them on stage that I didn't want it to end. Afterwards, we all went over to Christy's home where she and her husband had prepared a meal for us. After hearing that sermon, I started to notice how the men who were married to my biological sisters treated them. None of them ever demanded them to do anything for them that they could do for themselves, and they thanked them for any special treatment that they got. "I don't know how you do it, Christy," her husband Mike said. "Last night you made that amazing meal for my parents, and tonight here you are doing it all over for this crowd. God really blessed me with a wonderful woman." Christy's smile couldn't have been wider. "These Henderson women sure can cook, can't they?" Kelsey's husband Grant chimed in. "I'm glad that we married them." "You can say that again," Katie's husband Bill said. "I say that you ladies should relax after dinner and spend some time visiting while we do the dishes," Kyle offered. I felt guilty leaving the dishes to the men. Since my sisters didn't seem to think it was all that unexpected, I went along with it. We sat in the living room, and every one of them got out their knitting project. I was happy to have a small project in my purse. I couldn't sleep last night, so I came out here and got 3 inches done before I was tired enough to sleep, Christy said as she held up the sock that she was knitting. Then I couldn't get up this morning, so Mike made me breakfast in bed and helped me get things ready for tonight. He's a keeper for sure. How is that Afghan coming along, Katie? Grace asked. Not so good. I'm afraid that baby is going to arrive before I finish, Katie replied as she held up a pink lacy blanket. That is so beautiful, I said. I don't know how you can knit those lacy patterns while we were all talking to you. I would lose count. I made one like that for Amy's first daughter many years ago, and I could only work at it when I was home alone. I couldn't even watch television while I was working on it. I was like that at first. Since this is about my 20th one, I could knit it in my sleep, Katie said, as her fingers flew swiftly across the row. You made one like that for Lisa when she was born, didn't you? Christy asked. That was the first one. How long ago was that? Katie said. I even made one for Billy. I ended up giving that one to a friend. Billy got that red, white, and blue striped one instead. Pink lace was just not the right thing for Billy. 24 years ago you made that Afghan for Lisa, Christy said. Lisa just turned 24. I still have that one. It is in the box with her christening gown. When the men were done with dishes, they joined us and asked if we wanted to play a game with them. Grace, Katie, Kelsey, and I set our knitting down and joined them. Katie was on a deadline and didn't want to stop working on her project, so she sat on a comfy chair and chatted with us. I had such an amazing time with them. I felt a little sad about all the years that I had missed out on with them, but nothing was going to change the past, so I decided to enjoy our time together now and look forward to more moments like this in the future. As we played, I couldn't stop thinking about the message that we had heard in church earlier. I watched Kyle as he chatted with his sisters and mother. He treated women with respect. He was a Christian. He was very mature, and he was never abusive, not physically and not verbally. He was a man of God, a great Christian leader, and we shared a dream. Could this be the man that God had created just for me? I guess I couldn't be sure if I didn't accept his invitation to go on a date. Around 10, Grace suggested that we call it a night, and most everyone agreed. I didn't want the evening to end, and I really wanted to enjoy many more like this one. I feel like a walk. Kyle, would you like to go for a walk with me? I asked. I was just thinking the same thing, Kyle said. I know the perfect place. I can drop you off at Kelsey's afterwards. A walk is always a good place to start. I don't know what the future held for us, but I couldn't wait to find out. Thank you for reading this chapter of my book, The Double Switch. I hope that you enjoyed it. If so, please click on the like button. It will also help you to mark the spot where you left off. When you come back to the book, just look for the last chapter that you liked, and you will know which chapter you read last. Please click on the subscribe button and the bell so that you can be informed each time a new chapter or story is uploaded. God bless. Carole Neuok.